Hello, everybody. It was a pretty decent pullback for the overall market today. The Nasdaq was down 0.45%. Volume was slightly higher than the session before, but it was still so well below average that it's really hard to get upset by today's higher volume pullback. Technical distribution day, but the price action overall intraday very positive. A minor intraday reversal, very tight trading range. So, like I said, hard to get too bearish on today's minor technical distribution day. Overall, everything looks good on the Nasdaq. The S&P 500, same similar situation, minor pullback, good intraday reversal. Volume was actually lower than the session before on the NYSE, so that's good to see. Volume is drying up as we try to consolidate these gains. That's what you want to see. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was able to rally today slightly, lower volume than the session before, but don't really care much about that index. Dow Jones Transportation Average, another solid pullback. The only outlier was the Russell 2000. It was actually down 1.62% today. Lower volume, still holding the March lows, so nothing to worry about yet. But the weakness in the Russell 2000 is something that you don't want to see as we pull back here. You would like to see the Russell 2000 hold up and show stronger relative strength compared to the overall market. It's not doing that. And one of the biggest reasons is the biotech stocks. They reversed hard if they're downtrending 50-day moving average today on higher volume, but still below average. But XBI sold off 5.78%. The IBB sold off 3.81%. And the BIS is still in my perfect speculator scan. And that's looking like it found support there at the 50-day moving average. But the below average volume, once again, kind of leaves everything muddled, which leaves me to think that we are still basically in just a range-bound market. 2016 highs, 2016 lows. As long as we're trapped in between that range, we're probably not going to go anywhere with this below average volume. Like I said, the SPY, the QQQ, the diamonds, and the IWM all confirm the overall market. There is just zero accumulation here, which is why intraday I get shaken out of speculative stocks like BIOD. PATK is a 50% sell on the end-of-day basis, because it's closing below the 20-day moving average before producing any gains. And then ANFI followed through on its heavy volume sell-off from 2 sessions ago, closing below the 20-day moving average on heavier confirmation volume back through 2 distribution days and 3 sessions, and Red Bob. So it's a 50% sell on an end-of-day basis. And then I got shaken out of half my position in GENC. I had my first sell stop just below 1320. I don't know, it got filled around 1315, somewhere right around there. But by the end of the session, GENC is fine, so I need to add it back. I'm going to put buy stops for the amount of shares that I got knocked out of just above 1369. If it trades above 1369, I'm sure it'll still have max green BOP, and I'll be fine. But GENC, proving once again that once we go long something, it just can't zoom higher immediately, give us those 20% gains, then consolidate sideways, and then do it again. It's just a rough market, and that's also why I was knocked out of half of NADL intraday, and it's a pretty big pullback. And actually, I made this position too big. It's a 1% long position, but what I need to do, because this market is range bound and beautiful signals just aren't always following through. I mean, HH did, but even then, it didn't close near its highs. So the problem persists that this market just does not appear ready to go. So even if I do have a 1% signal, let's say, next time in NADL, and I know that my final cut loss has got to be with a move below 292, I'm going to have to make it a smaller position to 1%, and I want to get it to right around where I don't lose more than $300 total on the position for a 1% position. Also, whenever we're looking at a weaker market, my cutoff is going to be normally $200 max on any speculative position. But since we are in a buy signal, it can be $300. In a raging bull market, I loosen it all the way up to $400, $500, whatever it takes to get long a powerful stock. But in this market, there's a 1% position, but if I'm going to be losing more than $300 before I know I'm long, I got to scale it back, and I didn't do that on NADL. So NADL intraday, even though it hit only one of my sell stops, I lost more on a dollar amount than I wanted to. So that leads us to one of 2 new long positions tonight. BOOM is one of them, and then MSG. MSG is Madison Square Garden Networks. This is obviously where the New York Rangers, New York Knicks play, and all the entertainment venues go to Madison Square Garden. It's producing a pocket pivot point signal on a very large volume surge, and BOP has been increasing steadily after going green about 6 sessions ago. So today's pocket pivot point signal, with the stock not hitting a new high, gives us an excellent reward to risk ratio. Now, it's a CanSlim quality stock. It's not an ETF, it's a spin-off, but it becomes part of my ETF spin-off, over-the-counter bulletin board to NASDAQ, doesn't trade 200-day moving average yet kind of thing. So it's kind of newer overall as a spin-off. So I'll give it 1% for IPO, 1% for being a CanSlim name, and then it was also confirmed in my price volume BOP scan. So this will be a total of a 3% position. Our risk is very clear-cut, a move below today's intraday low, 163.01, and I will be completely out of MSG Networks. But as of right now, this is a very solid technical pattern, and if the market can continue to pull back on light volume, go sideways, or rally, period, this stock should do well. It's been under some solid accumulation off that February pocket pivot point move back here. Lower volume on the pullback, higher volume whenever it moves higher, so that's what I like to see with the technical indicators confirming. So 3% for MSG Networks. And then there's Boom, Dynamic Materials Corporation. This is a 1% new long signal. As you can see, a volume spike today, and BOPs didn't surge but moved higher to a higher green level. It's had 1, 2, 3, 4 pocket pivot point signals since its March lows, and it even had one back in February. So plenty of pocket pivot point signals. When it pulled back in February, low volume. When it consolidated here in March on the down days, lower volume. Tight price action on the down days, and then on the up days, you get volume surges and good intraday reversals. So BOOM is one of those situations I was talking about earlier. It's a 1% long position because it was only in the price volume BOP scan, and we're in a very weird buy signal right now with no real accumulation. So got to take it easy on BOOM. But me, 1% gives me too much risk. I'm going to lose over $300 on the trade. So like I said, I'm going to scale it back. So normally this would be like 600 shares for me to get long Boom to get it to 1%. It'll probably have to be right around 400 shares only. So if I do risk all the way back to 602, I don't lose more than $300 on this position. And then let's see, what else do we want to go? FSLR is a buy stop candidate. I think I want to go ahead and put it on the books now. The 20-day moving average is close to touching. It isn't quite touching yet, but I don't think I can wait around, because if FSLR breaks out here, I don't think we're going to be able to get a good entry on it. So I want to go ahead and put my buy stops, just 2% of the account capital. One for CanSlim, one for being perfect speculator quality, right above 73.71. If I get long at 73.71, you can be sure I will not let this thing go below 66.58 before getting out of the entire position. But FSLR, I'm 100% sure I'll be initiating buy stops tonight, just 2%. And then remember, buying back GENC, Madison Square Garden, 3%, and then Boom, 1% or less. PATK and ANFI, 50% sells. Now, the major plays of the day was CPXX early on, but I had a slight issue actually, because EDUC, even though you see it traded down to 22.21, my limit was at 22.23 all day long, and even though it hit 12.21, my shares never got filled, and it's probably because it's an odd lot in a thin stock. So while I was waiting for this thing to execute in the morning, I took my eye off CPXX, and I missed the ideal entry. At 9:30, it started to break down. We were watching it all intraday, pre-market, because it was slowly grinding lower after being up nearly 500%. It opened up and then it started to zoom higher, reversing. When it broke right here on heavy volume at 9:41, that was the signal to start look for a short entry. And from 9:41 to 9:48, it traded back up to that 775 range, which would have given me an excellent entry. But I was only on my laptop. I was focused on EDUC, and so from 9:41 to 9:48, I was not watching CPXX. That was the ideal entry, 775. It broke down perfectly, went flushed out all the way to 650. I would have been looking to start taking my shares in whenever it started to break below 7 here. And then if I would have been holding on to here, anything would have been gravy. The final, no matter what, you would not have still been holding it if it moved back above 750. So if you would have been short at 775 at most, at worst, you would have been out at 750 when it then made higher highs, higher lows, and higher highs right here. But the ultimate setup of the day that was missed, and it's just because IB did not have shares, was BRKO. It's an official pump and dump stock, and it has had tons of mailers and promotional newsletters pumping it today. It ran from $3.41 to $14, and while I never would have went long this move the entire way, there were many day traders that did. They made bank. I mean, it's still close up 121%, but up here intraday, I said at 1374, right before it hit 14, that it was time to look to short BRKO. When it was at 14, I said put your limits in at 1350. IB did not have shares. Boy, oh boy, if they would have, this would have been incredible. Because if you would have gotten filled at anywhere from 14 to 1350, this stock cratered all the way into the close to close around 752, which would have been nearly a 50% gain in a little over 1 hour. Not bad at all. But IB didn't have shares, so there's nothing you can do. All right, everybody, I'll see you tomorrow.